ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music, and more.
Hello, I'm Fran Kelly, and every day on the Radio National Hour, I take a deep breath and dive in.
If you can have a chip implanted in your brain to help control traumatic memory, then all you have to do is drop the adjective traumatic and it can control memory.
And he said, oh, well, we'll just take your stomach out. And in my head, I was like, how do you live without a stomach?
We're a funny species, Fran. You know, I think we're the only animal who seems to be hell-bent on their own destruction.
So if you want to know how to live without a stomach, or more about David Wenham's ideas for world peace, come find me on the Radio National Hour, right here on ABC Listen.
The war in Iran is creating economic uncertainty around the world. Higher inflation and pressure on central banks, including the RBA, to push up rates. So how are global stocks still surging? And why is Wall Street hitting record highs? Today, the ABC's finance expert, Alan Kohler, on why share markets remain so buoyant. And a clue, it's got a lot to do with AI. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Alan, things are looking pretty rough for the economy right now, aren't they? Inflation is up at 4.6%. That's the highest it's been since September 2023. And, of course, there is now pressure on the RBA to, I guess, keep hiking rates.
Yes, and the market odds of a rate hike today are 76%. So it's almost certain, I guess. Most of the economists, about roughly three-quarters of economists, are also saying a rate hike will take place today. The market's also saying that there'll be another one this year and probably the third. So yeah, there's a small number of economists who are predicting 3 more rate hikes this year. So I do think that if that happens, even if 2 happen, there's likely to be a recession. So we're into the second quarter now. We won't find out what GDP in the first quarter was until June the 3rd. And it's likely to be continued growth. The second quarter, which is what we're in now, is likely to be negative. So then the only question concerning a recession is whether the third quarter is also negative. We won't find that out until well into the second half of the year. But I think that the odds of having a recession are quite high now.
Wow, but why just explain then, why would the RBA continue to raise rates if the risk is there would be a recession?
Well, because it doesn't want there to be a recession, but it thinks that, and I think that a few economists think that in order to get rid of inflation, there has to be a recession. I mean, I think that we're just about, perhaps not quite in that situation, but we're getting there. I mean, and the problem is that the increase in fuel costs themselves slow the economy. But because inflation goes up, you said 4.6%, that includes the rise in diesel and petrol. People start to put that into their wage claims. And because the labour market is quite tight, those wage claims tend to be paid because companies have to, because they haven't got any choice. And so what the Reserve Bank faced with is the prospect of having to cause unemployment to rise in order to stop those wage claims actually flowing through.
And this is all because of the war in Iran?
Yeah.
All of it?
Pretty much. What a disaster.
So this is all because of Donald Trump's decision to go to war with Iran, and we don't know when that's going to end still.
We certainly don't. I mean, as we speak, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. I mean, obviously, they're not fighting at the moment, as they were to begin with. But the Strait of Hormuz is closed because both of the US and Iran are blockading it, trying to squeeze the other out.
I just want to shift now and talk about something a bit peculiar about this situation, which is, while we're all obviously suffering because of higher fuel prices, rising inflation, rising interest rates, Wall Street and the markets, they're doing okay, right? So what is going on?
That's right. The US stock market is at a record high and has been kind of shooting the lights out. It's about 5% higher than it was before the war began. The Australian market is lower, so it's not doing as well. But the reason the Wall Street's up so much is simply because of AI. I mean, this war is coinciding with an absolutely incredible burst of usage of AI. I mean, it's genuine. It's not just sort of market froth. What we're seeing is an incredible, you'd have to say it's a third wind, not a second, because there've been two bursts of it since ChatGPT was launched at the end of 2022. But now we're seeing companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, which owns Claude, seeing massive increases in their revenue because everyone's using AI all the time.
Wall Street continues to hit new record highs despite the ongoing Iran war.
Companies like Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Google and Oracle have been posting huge profits. And they're planning to spend nearly $800 billion on AI this year.
Right, so the markets are feeling really confident because of AI, because AI is booming, and in that sense they can pretend, if you like, that there isn't a war underway.
Well, they're just saying that the positives of AI are overwhelming the negatives of the war. And the positives are not just confined to the AI companies, although they're the ones leading the way for sure, but also the other companies are seeing their profits upgraded by analysts because of the increase in productivity that's now expected from AI. So it's kind of this incredible boom going on. It's not just affecting the AI companies, but basically the markets, investors, are expecting all companies to start making tons more money because of AI.
Right. So, but hang on, AI is still exposed to downturn, isn't it? Surely it's not immune from all of this.
No, of course, no one's immune from it, but the AI is sort of this separate thing going on, where it's a boom in the use of AI that is kind of separate to the increase in energy costs caused by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, and the other thing that's going on, of course, is that the energy companies, the oil companies and gas companies are all making tons of money because of the increase in the price. So two sectors of the stock market are booming and seeing their profits upgraded, energy and AI.
Is there also a belief, Alan, that if things were to go pear-shaped, that governments would bail companies out? Because we have seen in recent history, haven't we, on a number of occasions, that is what has occurred.
Well, what we've seen over the past few decades, really, is that every time the market falls, well, there's a real serious problem, governments and central banks step in. That's true. So, government spending increases and interest rates are cut. That's what happened in 2008 with the GFC and again with the pandemic. So there is a sense, I think, that's fair to say, I think, that moral hazard, which is where markets tend to believe that everything's going to be fine all the time, no matter what, and they'll always be rescued, is kind of there. That's true. I mean, it started off being called the Greenspan put, which is when Alan Greenspan was running the Federal Reserve in the US, there was a sense that Alan Greenspan would rescue the markets. And then that turned into Bernanke and then Janet Yellen and then Jerome Powell. So I think that you're right. There is a sense that, that the Fed will always rescue the markets. I mean, whether that applies to the incoming chairman, Kevin Walsh, who knows?
And the markets are constantly reading into Donald Trump's comments, of course, trying to get into his mind, I suppose.
Doing very well with regard to just about everything, but doing very well with regard to Iran. Again, they want to make a deal. They're decimated. So they want to make a deal, but I'm not satisfied with it. So we'll see what happens. But they're not coming through with the kind of deal that we have to have, and we're going to get this thing done properly. We're not going to leave early and then have the problem arise in 3 more years.
I mean, do they think at this point that the worst of the war is over, that Trump won't go back to fighting again, for instance? Does that also keep the markets higher?
Yes, I think there is definitely a belief that TACO, T-A-C-O, Trump always chickens out, will apply this time as well, as it did with the tariffs last year. It's obviously a bit more complicated this time because he's not entirely in control of the situation, So what he's managed to do with Iran is turn it from a failing, theocracy into a military dictatorship where they are very, very focused, and they've suddenly found the power that they've got over the Strait of Hormuz. Not going to give that up easily. I think that, markets need to kind of understand that. They're not at the moment. They just think it's all about what Donald Trump does. But I think to some extent it's going to be what the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps does, also what Israel does, and how all that plays out. So, obviously Trump and the US are terribly influential in what unfolds in the Middle East, but he is no longer in full control.
All right, so Alan, there's clearly a disconnect between what's going on Wall Street and the markets and what's going on in the real world, where people are facing higher fuel prices and rising inflation. But I guess the question is, does it really matter? Do we care?
Well, obviously people's superannuation depends on what happens in the markets, and I think there's a bit of what looks to be a disconnect between the markets and what's happening in the Middle East. But really what it is a connect between what's happening with AI and the markets. And, I think that the boom in artificial intelligence now has got to the point where it is, absolutely historic. And so, a lot of people still think that there'll be a market crash, that it's a bubble. But at this stage, it seems to be supported by profits. The thing about a bubble is that it's not supported by profits, but at the moment it is, and it seems to have a fair way to run. I just think it's quite early days with AI, so I think, anyone who's kind of expecting there to be a crash next month or something is probably going to be disappointed.
But could it be that the markets have got this wrong, that they're underestimating the impact of this war? Is it possible?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, look, if the Strait of Hormuz is still closed in, 2 or 3 months' time, then there will almost certainly be a global recession, which will mean that the companies that are, and people to some extent, the companies and people that are buying AI subscriptions and, producing these profits for these AI companies, won't be able to do it anymore because they'll be going broke. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's right. That at some point, a global recession will bring the AI boom to an end, temporarily at least. But in terms of AI and artificial intelligence usage, I think that the world has changed forever. But it may be that a global recession caused by a continuing closure of the Strait of Hormuz, sort of derails it for a while. That's absolutely right.
Wow. And what sort of, that would be a crash, would it? What would we be looking at? How devastating would that be?
Yeah, well, if there is a global recession, then the stock market will definitely fall. Unemployment will rise. It'll be bad. It'll be terrible. No doubt about it. What are the chances of that? I don't know. I do think there's a chance that Iran will maintain its control of the Strait of Hormuz now, having got it. So maybe whatever Trump and US do, Iran will have a toll on the Strait of Hormuz, so that it'll be more expensive to sail through there. And that'll be put onto everyone's prices.
Well, Alan, you better tell me then, do you reckon the market's actually got this right, that, it's sending a sign that maybe we shouldn't be too concerned, there's the AI boom, companies are doing well, or do you think potentially it may have it wrong and the consequences could be quite devastating? What's your view?
Well, look, Trump yesterday or last night said that they're having productive talks with Iran. Everything's going to be fine. They're going to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz. So that looks all right, So I suppose, Sam, my glass is half full at the moment.
Brilliant. And what about our own economy then? You were speaking about recession earlier on, so...
Oh, well, look...
What's the likelihood of that?
This morning I interviewed the CEO of Bega Group, the food company, Pete Finlay, and he said he thought that what's happening will result in 5 to 6% inflation. So if that's true, and it looks like it, then the Reserve Bank will probably increase interest rates at least 2 more times, and there will be a slowdown at least one negative quarter of GDP, and there'll be a slowdown in the economy. So will it be a recession? I don't know, but maybe.
Alan Kohler is the ABC's finance expert. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Halling. Thanks for listening.